Topic 2: Intercultural Communication and Culture by Dr. Kenneth Key. Framework for Topic 2. 1. What is culture? 2. What are the functions of culture? 3. What are the accepted characteristics of culture? 4. What are the fundamental patterns of cultural differences? 5. How do culture shapes us? 6. What is the iceberg model of culture? 7. What are the cultural variables affecting ICC? 8. What are some issues in culture? 9. How can we compare cultures? What is culture? Acquired knowledge that people use to interpret, experience, and generate social behavior. This knowledge forms values, creates attitudes, and influences behavior. What are the functions of culture? Beamer 1 and Warner L. 2011 commented that culture performs 3 functions. 1. Culture ranks what is important. 2. Culture furnishes attitudes. 3. Culture dictates behavior. What are the accepted characteristics of culture? 1. Learned. 2. Shared. 3. Transgenerational. 4. Patterned. 5. Adaptive. 6. Dynamic. Now look at the iceberg model of culture. We have the visible aspects of culture that we are aware of, that we can see it. It is surface culture. So these are the surface culture: dress, food, rituals, language, arts, behaviors, material things, religion, festivals, music. These are the cultural aspects that we are unaware of. We cannot see. These are called deep culture. We have perceptions, values, shared assumptions, beliefs, attitudes, work ethic, expectations, thought processes, pride, biases, and feelings. So what are the 4 fundamental patterns of cultural differences? What is different? So we have 4 differences in culture, 4 patterns. 1. Communication styles. 2. Attitudes toward conflicts. 3. Decision-making style. 4. Approaches to knowing. And so what is hidden below the surface? Hidden we cannot see, so it is deep in the surface, below the surface. So we have 1. Beliefs. 2. Values. 3. Expectations. 4. Attitudes. So now let's go on. How do culture shapes us? So how does it change or shapes our personality? So let's go. The way we think, the way we interact, the way we communicate, the way we transmit knowledge to the next generation. And what are the cultural variables affecting ICC? 1. attitudes. 2. Social organization. 3. Thought processes. 4. Roles. 5. Language. 6. Nonverbal communication. 7. Time. Cultures vary in how different they are from each other. Individuals are not the same as cultures. Cultures and perception shape the way we process and create messages. So what are some issues in culture? 1. The issue is time. Monochronic. Do just one thing at a time versus polychronic. So monochronic is versus polychronic. Polychronic is we do multiple things at the same time. And we have the meanings. The meanings of time, what is defined with the term. So how do you define the term? It is important to you or it is not. Okay? And second, personal space. Preferred distance. Territoriality. Interaction with or ignoring people in close proximity. So we have 1, time, and 2, personal space. It is the issues in culture. Let's go number 3. Number 3 is friendship and acquaintance. And number 4, agreements. Number 5, etiquette. And how can we compare cultures? You want to compare cultures, so how? So now let's go. Observing different types of culture. You observe types of culture, so what are the types? And we compare along the cultural dimensions. So we have the cultural dimension as well. Let's go on. 1. So these are the types of culture. We have high context culture and low context culture. And 2, we talk about the cultural dimensions. So these are the criteria to compare the cultures across. Okay, let's go on. And now, what is high context culture and what is low context culture? American anthropologist Edward T. Hall identified the notion of high context and low context in cultural communications. The concept of high and low context culture relates to how a person's thoughts, opinions, feelings, and upbringing affect how she or he acts within a given culture. So what are the characteristics of high context cultures? It is the relationship and trust centered. Social structure and authority are centralized. Polychronic, flexible with time. Time is not easily scheduled. Relies on implicit communication and nonverbal cues. We have like the voice, tone, gestures, facial expression, and eye movement. Space is communal and people stand close to each other and share the same space. Attention to group process and groups are preferred and accuracy is valued. We have the examples like those nations as Asian, African, Arab, Central European, Latin American cultures. And what are the characteristics of low context cultures? Relationship is transactional centered and begin and end quickly. Social structure is decentralized and allows flexibility. Monochronic. Events and tasks are scheduled and to be done at particular times. Verbal messages are explicit and communication is seen as a way of exchanging information, ideas, and opinions. Space is compartmentalized and privacy is important, so people stand farther apart. Attention to the goal task-centered and individual orientation is preferred and speed is valued. Examples: United States, Australia, UK, other highly developed European countries. What are cultural dimensions? So let's go on and explore the dimensions of culture. The Hofstede's cultural dimensions theory, developed by Geert Hofstede, a Dutch management researcher, in 1980. So, what does he say about the cultural dimensions? A framework to understand the differences in culture across countries and to discern the ways that business is done across different cultures. Aim of the study was to determine the dimensions in which cultures vary. Yeah, and the source of these cultural dimensions can derive from www.hofstede/insights.com. So now let's go. What are the 6 categories of cultural dimensions? First, power distance index. Second, collectivism and individualism. Third, uncertainty avoidance index. Fourth, femininity versus masculinity. Fifth, short-term versus long-term orientation. Sixth, restraint versus indulgence. Yeah. So we compare which is low context and which is high context. So let's go. So power distance. Yeah. Power distance. Low context. Egalitarian. And for high, embraces hierarchy. Okay. Collectivism versus individualism. Yeah. So collectivism, is lower, and individualist is high here. Uncertainty avoidance index. Okay. So for low context, comfortable with uncertainty, and for high context is uncomfortable with uncertainty. Femininity versus masculinity. So for low context, nurture important, and for high context, power important. Short-term versus long-term orientation. For low context, traditional and short-term, and for high context, futuristic and long-term. And now let's see the restraint versus indulgence. For low context, normative repression, and for high context, satisfaction is good. So let's go on. So now let's go to power distance index. Power distance index, it considers the extent to which inequality and power are tolerated. In this dimension, inequality and power are viewed from the viewpoint of the followers, the lower level. High power distance index indicates that the culture accepts inequality and power differences, encourages bureaucracy, and shows high respect for rank and authority. Low power distance index indicates that a culture encourages organizational structures that are flat, decentralized decision-making responsibility, participative style of management, and places emphasis on power distribution. Collectivism and individualism. considers the degree to which societies are integrated into groups and their perceived obligation and dependence on groups. Collectivism indicates that there is greater importance on the goals and well-being of the group. A person's self-image in this category is defined as we. Individualism indicates that there is greater importance on attaining personal goals. A person's self-image in this category is defined as I. Uncertainty Avoidance Index considers the extent to which uncertainty and ambiguity are tolerated and how unknown situations and unexpected events are dealt with. High Uncertainty Avoidance Index indicates a low tolerance for uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk-taking. Unknown is minimized through strict rules, regulations, etc. Lower Uncertainty Avoidance Index indicates a high tolerance for uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk-taking. Unknown is more openly accepted, and there are lax rules, regulations, etc. Femininity versus masculinity, also referred to as tough and tender versus tender, and considers the preference of society for achievement, attitude towards its sexuality, equality, behavior, etc. Femininity comes with the following characteristics: fluid gender roles, modest, nurturing, and concerned with the quality of life. Masculinity comes with the following characteristics: distinct gender roles, assertive, and concentrated on material achievements and wealth-building. Short-term versus long-term orientation considers the extent to which society views its time horizon. Long-term orientation shows focus on the future and involves delaying short-term success or gratification in order to achieve long-term success. Emphasizes persistence, perseverance, and long-term growth. Short-term orientation shows focus on the near future, involves delivering short-term success or gratification, and places a stronger emphasis on the present than the future. Emphasizes quick results and respect for tradition. Restraint versus indulgence considers the extent and tendency for a society to fulfill its desires. Revolves around how societies can control their impulses and desires. Indulgence indicates that a society allows relatively free gratification related to enjoying life and having fun. Restraint indicates that a society suppresses gratification of needs and regulates it through social norms. So what are the 7 dimensions of culture? So previously we have the 7 dimensions, and now we have previously we have the 6th dimension of Hofstede, and now we have the 7 dimensions of another scholar. So in 1998, management consultants, Franz Trump, Penars, and Hamden Turner published their 7 dimensions of culture, model and help to explain. To explain what? Explain the national cultural differences and organizations, and show how managing these differences in a heterogeneous business environment is a major challenge for international managers. So these are their series. Trump panels and cultural dimensions. So we have the opposite. We have the pair as well. Universalism and versus particularism. Individualism and communitarianism. We have specific and diffuse. We have neutral and affective. We have achievement and ascription. We have sequential term and synchronous term. We have internal direction and we have external direction. So you can derive this from www.expertprogrammanagement.com. Let's go on to number 1, universalism versus pluralism. So what is more important? Is it the rules or relationships? Degree of importance a culture assigns to either the law or to personal relationships. In a universalistic culture, people share the belief that general rules, codes, values, and standards take precedence over the needs, claims of friends and other relationships. In a pluralistic culture, people see culture in terms of human friendship and intimate relationships. While rules do exist in a pluralistic culture, they merely codify how people relate to one another. 2. Individualism versus communitarianism. Do we function as a group or as individuals? Is the degree to which people see themselves function more as a community or more as individuals. In an individualistic culture, people place the individual before the community. This means that individual happiness, fulfillment, and welfare prevails, and people take their own initiative and take care of themselves. In the communitarian culture, people place the community before the individual. It is the responsibility of the individual to act in ways which serve society. In doing so, individual needs are automatically attended. 3. Specific versus diffuse. So how far do we get involved? Degree to which responsibility is specifically assigned or is diffusely accepted. In a specific culture, people first analyzed the elements individually and then put them together. The whole is the sum of its parts. People's lives are divided accordingly, and only a single component can be entered at a time. Interactions between people are very well defined. Specific individuals concentrate on hard facts, standards, and contracts. A diffusely oriented culture starts with the whole and sees individual elements from the perspective of the total. All elements are related to one another. Relationships between elements are more important than individual elements. 4. Affectivity versus neutrality. Okay. Do we display our emotions? Degree to which individuals display their emotions. In In an affective culture, people display their emotions and it is not deemed necessary to hide feelings. In a neutral culture, people are taught not to display their feelings outwardly. The degree to which feelings become manifested is therefore minimal. While emotions are felt, they are controlled. 5. Inner directed versus outer directed. Do we control our environment or work with it? The degree to which individuals believe the environment to be controlled versus believing that the environment controls them. In an inner directed culture, people have a mechanistic view of nature. Nature is complex but can be controlled with the right expertise. People believe that humans can dominate nature if they make the effort. In an outer directed culture, people have an organic view of nature. Mankind is viewed as one of nature's forces and should therefore live in harmony with the environment. People therefore adapt themselves to external circumstances. 6. Achieved status versus ascribed status. Do we have to prove ourselves to receive status, or is it given to us? The degree to which individuals must prove themselves to receive status versus status simply given to them. In a culture with achieved status, people derive their status from what they have accomplished. Achieved status must be proven time and time again, and status will be given accordingly. In a culture with ascribed status, people achieve their status from birth, age, gender, or wealth. Status is not based on achievement, but it is accorded on the basis of the person's being. 7. Sequential time versus synchronic time. Do we do things one at a time or several things at once? The degree to which individuals do things one at a time versus several things at once. Cultures developed their own response to time. Time orientation has two aspects: the relative importance cultures assign to the past, present, and future, and their approach to structuring time. In a sequential culture, people structure time sequentially and do things one at a time. In a synchronic time culture, people do several things at once, believing time is flexible and intangible. So what are the practical applications of understanding high and low context culture and cultural dimensions in effective ICC? ICC is intercultural communication. So 1. Be aware of cultural differences. 2. Learn more about other cultures. 3. Expose yourself to other cultures. 4. Immerse yourself in another culture. 5. Observe and adapt. 6. Develop your cultural awareness and competencies. So, let's go to the review of what we have learned so far in topic 2. First, what is culture? Second, what are the functions of culture? Third, what are the accepted characteristics of culture? Fourth, what are the 4 fundamental patterns of cultural differences? And fifth, how do cultural shapes us? And 6. What is the iceberg model of culture? And 7. What are the cultural variables affecting ICC? 8. What are some issues in culture? And 9. How can we compare cultures? We compare by high context and low context cultures. These are the types of cultures, right? We compare the cultures by type, and we have two types, high context and low context cultures. And we compare by dimension. We have the cultural dimensions, so we have differences in dimensions across cultures. Okay, so that is all about my PowerPoint slides presentation. And again, this presentation is from Dr. Kenneth Key. He is the professor at Northern University, lecturing in ICC, Intercultural Communication, master degree. Okay, thank you for your attention, and bye-bye.